Critics are not letting Mocha Uson off the hook after she resigned. They want the former communications official to face the music. Senator Antonio Trillanes, face-to-face with the Justice Secretary, has another message to the Duterte administration. And tapping technology and connecting to customers on a personal level, that takeaway and more from this year's DigiCon. Hello and welcome. I'm Ruth Cabal. Thanks for joining us. After figuring in a number of controversies in almost 2 years in public office, Communications Assistant Secretary Mocha Uson has quit. But for critics, her resignation was just too easy a way out. Joyce Ilas tells us more.
Mocha Uson has been embroiled in a number of controversies. The controversial federalism jingle, to making fun of the sign language. Yet most of the time, she has remained unfazed. But when the Presidential Communications Operations Office's 2019 budget at the House of Representatives was delayed, Uson found herself in a tight spot.
Ako na po ang magsasakripisyo para maipasa na po ang budget ng PCOO. Ako po ay nagdesisyon na mag-resign na po.
Makabayan lawmakers at the House of Representatives have moved to defer discussions on the 2019 budget of the PCOO twice, citing Uson's absence. Leftist lawmakers wanted to question Uson on a number of issues, but she was in New York for the United Nations General Assembly. On Wednesday, Uson attended the Senate hearing on the PCOO's budget and lamented the actions of leftist lawmakers. She reasons they are angry at her due to an interview featured in her blog wherein an indigenous people's leader claimed that the CPP-NPA is using IPs or LUMADs to oust President Duterte.
Ang factor po talaga ay yung bulok na sistema na sasabihan ka na pigilan mo ang pagpuna sa ilang mambabatas dahil iipitin nila ang budget. Taon-taon na lamang pong ganoon eh. Kaya po gusto ko na lang po ng kalayaan, gusto ko pong mas lumaban pa.
Uson says she is open to running for public office, but is not certain yet whether as a congresswoman or senator. What is clear is that Uson will go back to blogging, and this time she vows to be even more ferocious in her posts. Free from the limitations of an appointed official, Uson is ready to claw back at her critics in the way she knows best.
Yung mga epal na senador at mga kongresista, kasi sumusobra na sila. Kailangan na pong lumaban dahil sobra-sobra na po yung mga pag-akusa na hindi ko po ipinaglalaban ng sarili ko dahil iniisip ko yung opisina at ang boss ko, Sec. Martin Andanar at ang Pangulo. Kaya ngayon po ay sabay-sabay na tayo. Bakbakan na kung bakbakan.
With Uson out of PCOO, Senator J.V. Ejercito, the sponsor of PCOO budget, believes the agency will face fewer controversies.
Si Hasek Mocha kasi became very controversial kasi alam niyo naman siya, very very fiery. Siguro yung style niya, siguro baka hindi bumagay sa gobyerno.
Meanwhile, Senate President Tito Soto wants the PCOO to be under the Office of the Press Secretary again to make it more effective. He argues the PCOO was created to accommodate the political friends of the past administration. The PCOO has a budget of about 1.47 billion pesos. That's 39.4 million peso higher than the 2018 budget. And Senator J.V. Ejercito is confident that this agency's budget will finally be passed. Joyce Ila, CNN Philippines.
Filipino is giving their 2 cents online. Twitter user Attorney for Justice says Uson finally did something right for the Filipino people. Arman Arena says win-win for everyone. He says the government can get a better communications assistant secretary, while Uson can continue supporting the president, but without restrictions of a public official. But at Jonas Baga says don't get any false sense of satisfaction from Uson's resignation. He points out Uson was not penalized for her mistakes. And this netizen brings up the possibility that Uson may run for public office after her resignation. Critics want more from Uson than a resignation. They want her to be accountable for her actions. Akbayan Representative Tom Villarin says Uson's quitting came, quote, too little too late. Her deeds have poisoned the air we breathe, unquote. But Villarin adds Uson's resignation is a whiff of fresh air. Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate says Uson should still be held liable for her controversial videos.
Overdue na yung pag-resign niya, no? While tingin natin public service to public trust, it is also about public accountability, no? So kung kahit nag-resign na siya, kung meron siyang nagawa na paglabag sa ating mga alituntunin at batas, kailangan panagutan pa rin niya yun.
As for Akbayan Youth Chairperson JC Tejano, Uson does not deserve a graceful exit via resignation. Tejano said Uson should never be allowed to join the government again. Meantime, Vice President Leni Robredo spokesperson also weighs in. Barry Gutierrez says Uson should not think she's off the hook and that she will be liable for her lies. Let's take a look back at some of the biggest controversies that involved Mocha Uson. That report from AC Nichols.
Celebrity entertainer and blogger Mocha Uson was arguably the most controversial appointee of President Rodrigo Duterte. Her cocky and unapologetic pro-government posts often trended online. Just weeks after her appointment as Communications Assistant Secretary in May last year, Uson steered criticism for misrepresenting Philippine troops. She shared on Facebook a photo showing soldiers kneeling as if in prayer. In her post, she asked for prayers for the army, as hundreds of government troops were battling terrorists in Marawi City at the time. Netizens, however, pointed out that the photo was of troops in Honduras taken in 2015. On the defense, Uson said the photo was symbolic. In a tweet last year, the former Assistant Secretary dared Vice President Leni Robredo and other members of the Liberal Party to visit the wake of a slain police officer. She even included a link of a news article on the incident, which was published the year prior. Earlier this year, Uson found herself in a spat with multimedia powerhouse Chris Aquino. The youngest sister of former President Noynoy Aquino called Uson out after she reposted a clip of her father, the late Senator Ninoy Aquino Jr., being kissed by a female supporter before he was escorted out of a plane and assassinated in 1983. Uson had used the video to hit back at critics after Duterte kissed a woman on the lips during a meeting with the Filipino community in South Korea. Uson demanded to know why people found the Duterte kiss malicious, but not the one of the late senator. Despite public backlash, Uson stood by her post and refused to apologize. President Duterte had to step in, apologizing to the Aquino family through his right-hand man, Bongo. Just this August, Uson got herself in hot water over her involvement in a video supposedly meant to spread information about federalism, a pet project of President Duterte. The video shown on her blog had her co-host, Drew Olivar, doing lewd dance moves and gestures. The backlash was strong and immediate. Some public officials even questioned the government's seriousness about federalism. Most recently, the duo sparked outrage once again for making fun of the sign language and the deaf community. Aside from receiving much criticism online, the former PCOO official also faces a complaint at the Ombudsman for violating the Magna Carta for disabled persons. This time, Uson apologized. Blunder after blunder, critics urged her to step down. They finally got their wish. But for Uson, this is not the end. She promises to be even more vocal online and possibly run for a seat in Congress.
Trillanes calls on the Justice Department to stop what he says is the perpetration of injustice. Trillanes made the appeal to Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara at the Senate's hearing on the DOJ budget. Trillanes asked the DOJ to not pursue cases without basis, citing his own situation and that of Senator Laila de Limas as examples.
I hope in the remaining years of the Duterte administration, maging ehemplo ang DOJ. What's done is done. Yung nangyayari sa akin ngayon, I can be put away in prison or in detention without bail for a missing application form. Palagay ko in any definition of justice, talagang wala yon. But sige na. Let me be the last casualty for that. Yung mga ordinaryong tao, I can imagine, mas mahirap yung pinagdadaanan.
I completely agree with you that the Department of Justice should not be a weapon to persecute political opponents. And since the time that I assumed office as Secretary of Justice, I have always made it a point for the department to observe the rule of law and to base all of its actions on the available evidence and nothing else. We assure the Senator that the Department of Justice will live up to its name of being the administrator of justice to everyone.
Trillanes is currently out on bail as Makati Regional Trial Court Branch 150 tackles rebellion charges against him. Meantime, Branch 148 has set a hearing on Friday to tackle coup d'etat charges against Trillanes. These came after President Duterte declared void the amnesty granted to the senator back in 2011. The Agriculture Department believes there may be too much fancy rice in the market that's driving up prices of the staple, and it plans to do something about it. Our Trisha Terada has the details.
If you were a fancy rice consumer, that kind of staple may soon be a luxury. The government will ban fancy rice imports as a way to make regular rice more affordable to the public.
Bakit pinipilahan ang NFA rice? Kasi yun yung pinakamurang bigas eh. Hindi ibig sabihin kulang, merong bigas na available, mahal. Unless we correct this, we will always have a problem like this. We have fancy rice coming in, jasmine, long grains, kung ano-anong pangalan, may diamond, kung ano-anong pangalan. Lahat ng gimmick ginagawa. Basta mabenta ng 55 pesos, 58, 60 pesos, beyond the reach of ordinary consumers.
Beginning next year, the government will only allow importation of the more affordable 25% broken rice, which will flood the market. Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol says they're planning to give traders until December to dispose of their remaining imported premium fancy rice stocks. Piñol says premium fancy rice will still be available through local producers.
Because yung 25% broken could be brought in at a much lower price. And it could be sold between 38 pesos to 40 pesos. Malaki na ang tubo ng mga traders niyan.
Meanwhile, the Agriculture Department held a National Food Security Summit to craft a food security master plan based on proposals of local government units. The summit on Wednesday lasted for 2 hours, and Piñol says local governments have already submitted their reports. Piñol showcased the solar-powered irrigation system and modern database for tracking farmers, some technologies that Piñol says local governments can also have. As an incentive, 96 mayors who attended the summit were granted 10 million pesos for farm-to-market road project for their municipalities. That's a total of 960 million pesos that will be part of the Agriculture Department's 2020 budget. Mayors are happy about the grant and commit to make the most out of it.
Ilan lang meters lang siguro magagawa ng isang pondo na yon kung gisa-gisaan pa natin or pipilitin pa nating hatiin. Kaya we will find time to look into, magplano kami, ano yung pinakamaganda na production area talaga.
In the meantime, Piñol says there's no food shortage. The problem is the positioning of food and maximizing resources. He says vegetable prices have begun to normalize, while rice prices will stabilize beginning this month. Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
Former Army Major General Jovito Palparan is now at the New Bilibid prison. The Justice Department says Palparan was turned over at 7:45 this evening. Palparan and 2 others were sentenced to up to 40 years in jail for the kidnapping of University of the Philippines students Karen Empeño and Cheryl Cadapan in 2006. The former general is still facing a separate illegal detention case over the abduction of brothers Raymond and Reynaldo Manalo. A military official says the Communist Party of the Philippines is recruiting members in more than 10 universities in Manila through screenings of martial law films. Armed Forces Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, Brigadier General Antonio Parlade, says the films incite students to rebel against the government. Schools include University of the Philippines Diliman and Manila and the University of Santo Tomas. Parlade adds school boards may not be aware that the CPP is actively recruiting members. In an earlier statement, the CPP denounced the crackdown on opposition protests. The Kabataan Party List believes the Duterte regime and the AFP are orchestrating a forced declaration of martial law, adding they are bent on targeting student leaders. The group calls on both to stop using the crises and the student movement for their terrorist and tyrannical interests.